Okay, so today we're going to be making half sour pickles. I'm going to talk for a little bit and then the volunteers will put out ingredients and we'll make it together step by step. Raise your hand if you've ever made pickles. So a lot of you have made pickles. Okay, so we are going to be making half sour pickles. Half sour pickles do not have vinegar in it. So we're not going to be putting vinegar in our pickles today. The main ingredient and what's going to get the pickles to become pickled is kosher salt. Kosher salt? Yeah, so they do sell a pickling salt actually in a box like this, and it says pickling salt. I've actually never used it. I just stick with the kosher salt, but they do sell it now. Does anyone know how pickles got so popular in the Jewish, like how they became a Jewish food? So back in the old country, in Poland, Lithuania, Russia, they got really bored of their food. Like they got sick of just eating potatoes all day. So they just decided to try different things, and they cut cucumbers and onions and radishes, and they would put salt and water in big barrels and leave them for a couple months to like ferment. And they would have food over the winter that was like something new, not just potatoes that you get sick of. And when they came to New York, when they immigrated to America, it became a business for a lot of these Jewish people. They made pickles and they would go around on the push carts, some of you might remember, in Manhattan, and they would sell pickles for 25 cents or 10 cents. And it became like a Jewish food. It just became known as like a Jewish food. And when you went to like delis, they just always served sandwiches with pickles. And now pickles are very in, and everybody pickles everything. You can pickle radishes, you can pickle onions, you can pickle cucumbers, tomatoes. I just told Connie yesterday, maybe next year we should try something new just for fun. So we're gonna talk about that right now. Can a kosher pickle not be kosher? So if you see in the grocery stores, the pickles are actually called kosher pickles. Yes, right. A kosher pickle could be not kosher if the ingredients that they use to make the pickles aren't kosher, then the pickle would not be kosher. So you might put like some of the spices that you use might not be kosher, or it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not actually kosher, but I'm going to explain it. In order for something to be kosher, a rabbi has to go there, and people think a rabbi has to bless the item. The rabbi doesn't bless the item. The rabbi that just goes there and checks all the ingredients and checks the factory and makes sure that there's no milk and meat being mixed or there's no non-kosher ingredients. And then he gives the okay that it's kosher, and then they get the kosher certification. So it's a hechsher, exactly. So salt is kosher. The reason, does anyone know how kosher salt got its name and why it's actually called kosher salt? Like you can find this in any grocery store. It's thicker, right? Kosher salt is thicker because when we slaughter an animal in the kosher way, part of the process is to salt the animal and absorb as much blood as we can because we don't eat blood. So I just said this, but it's actually a myth. Kosher does not mean food blessed by a rabbi. There is actually no blessing said to make something kosher. Kosher is just a special diet that's listed in the Torah, and it just tells us, the Torah tells us which animals are kosher, which fish are kosher, and then a person or a rabbi goes and checks to make sure ingredients are kosher. So here's some kosher symbols that you might find on food. These are like one of the more popular ones, the OU, the OK. So that's like the Orthodox Union. Those are really big kosher symbols, and you'll find it like on the salt box in the corner. You might find it on any foods that you purchase. And surprisingly, a lot of things are kosher. If you start looking, you'll notice that a lot of foods in your kitchen and in the stores are actually kosher. So what makes something kosher? Animals have to, does anyone know? Chew their cud and have split hooves. Fish have to have fins and scales. And all blood needs to be drained from the meat and the chicken. And then vegetables, fruits and vegetables are all kosher. We just check them and make sure that there's no bugs. When we eat meat and milk, we wait a few hours between. When we eat meat, we wait 6 hours before we eat dairy. And when we eat dairy, we wait 1 hour before we eat meat. Some people wait a half hour. A lot of people have separate utensils for meat, dairy, and sometimes parve. People have separate utensils for Passover. They have separate dishes, pots and pans, separate ovens. So there's a lot involved in making things kosher and having a kosher kitchen. Okay, so we are gonna start making pickles. The volunteers are gonna come around and put ingredients on your table and a recipe. You're gonna get a recipe card to take home, so you don't have to take a picture. We'll do it step by step, and we'll wait for everyone to get the ingredients passed around. So I'm just gonna go through the ingredients as they go around. Everyone should have a container of cucumbers in front of them. These are pickling cucumbers. You can use pickling cucumbers. You can use Kirby or Persian cucumbers. Those work really well. They have a thinner skin, so they pickle nicely. Yeah. And they're basically the same. These are, yeah. When you get home, if you want, you can cut off the ends and you can trim them, slice them. We're just gonna keep them whole right now, but sometimes when you cut off the ends, they pickle faster because it goes in better. So everyone will have cucumbers in front of them. Then you will have garlic. You might notice that when you get home, the garlic might change colors to like green or blue. Don't get worried. That's just an acid reaction of the garlic mixing with the spices and the salt. So it doesn't mean that anything's wrong, okay? I just like to let everyone know that because it gets scary, like when your garlic turns blue or green, you know? Then you're gonna have dill. You're gonna have peppercorn and coriander seed. They look very, very similar. The peppercorn is darker. I'll remind you soon, but just so you know, they look the same, but they're two different ingredients on your table. And then you're gonna have the bay leaves, the salt, and then we'll come around with water at the end. So today we're making half sour pickles. They don't have vinegar in it. You can make pickles with vinegar, but we're making half sours that don't have vinegar. These are like the Bubby's pickles, the Clausen pickles that you see in the grocery store, that they taste similar, yeah. How much would you add? About 1/3 of a cup. But it's it takes longer to pickle. Like I could give you a recipe if you want with vinegar. If you give me your number after, I'll email you. And if you do like pickles with vinegar, you can use all kinds of vinegar. You can use apple cider, you can use white vinegar, red wine vinegar. Yeah, it lasts longer if you put vinegar, but it's a different pickle. It's a different pickle, and a lot of people say it's not a kosher pickle because it doesn't remind you of like. Yeah. Yeah, they sell now something new. You can find it in most of the grocery stores. It's called something. No, it's called something else. If you look for it, you'll see it. It keeps pickles crispier. When you make homemade pickles, you just put a little spoon of it in. It kind of looks like salt, but it's not salt, and it doesn't change the flavor. It just keeps your pickles crispier and not as limp. Yeah. Yes. So, good question. Pickling spices is all these ingredients together. Today we are creating our own pickling spice. The difference is that pickling spice usually has cinnamon in it. A lot of people don't like that cinnamon flavor, so I created my own recipe without cinnamon. So we're making our own pickling spice. Yes. So we're gonna start right now. Does every table have all the ingredients? Okay, so everybody can open your containers. And we are gonna start with the garlic. So you can pass around the garlic. Everybody could put 4 or 5 cloves of garlic. And you really can't go wrong with garlic. You could put more, you could put less. You can't go wrong with it. So we just started and we're doing the garlic. Everybody could just pass it around and take 4 or 5 cloves of garlic. And we cheated because we bought the ready peeled garlic. When I do it at home with my kids, we peel the garlic and it takes time. You have to have good fingers for that. But you can buy peeled garlic and it tastes the same. Oh yeah, it's more, okay, so somebody here said that kosher pickles in the store, the ones that you buy, they are usually more garlicky. I think Jews like garlic. Okay, we're gonna give everybody 1 more minute to finish with the garlic. Yes. You can use a little bit more, yeah. Okay, we are going to skip over the dill. We're gonna do the dill last, and we're gonna do the coriander next. The coriander is the lighter brown seed on your table. You're gonna put a half a teaspoon of it. And the nice thing about making your own pickling spice is if you put a little more, it's not gonna hurt it, it's not gonna matter. It's okay if your spoon was overflowing. So everybody should have garlic in their containers, and we're up to the coriander. A half a teaspoon of coriander, that's the light brown seed. Coriander is a sister to cilantro. So it's a similar, it comes from a similar plant as cilantro. Did everybody get the coriander? Yes, are we still waiting for coriander anywhere? Yes, okay, we'll wait another minute. Okay, the next ingredient is the peppercorn. So this is like black pepper, but we're actually doing it from the actual seed of pepper. So it's a little bit stronger than black pepper. And we're doing 1/4 teaspoon of peppercorns. That's the darker brown seed. Some of the tables might have the wrong teaspoon. So is that what you were saying? Okay. It's a half a teaspoon, so you just need to put half of it. Because we're doing 1/4 teaspoon of the peppercorn. Do you have the right teaspoon in there? Okay. Are we good with the peppercorn? Okay, so everybody should have the garlic, the coriander, and the peppercorn. Now we are up to the bay leaves. Those are the big leaves on the table. You can put between 2 and 4 bay leaves. Did everybody get the bay leaves over here? Everybody got the bay leaves? Okay, so the next ingredient, and the ingredient that makes it pickle, is the kosher salt. We're going to be putting 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of kosher salt. So if you can't have as much salt in your diet, you can put a little bit less. You can put the 1 tablespoon. If you
What makes a pickle crispy?
crispier, it's really based on the cucumber, like how no, the thinner the skin, the better it is, and the like fresher the cucumber. Like if the cucumbers are a little bit limp, then automatically your pickle's probably going to be more limp. These are really great cucumbers. They're like, no, there's something out there on the market. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like something chloride. It's a new thing that they're selling to make, because pickling is so in now. So like if you go to any grocery store, you can find a lot of things for pickling. So they sell this new thing that you put a half a teaspoon inside your pickles and it makes them crispier. No, I can't, I'll tell you soon. I'm gonna look at it. Yeah. Yes, yes.
What makes a good sour?
So we're making half sour pickles. If you want these to be sour pickles, you would just ferment them for longer. You wouldn't eat them right away, and after a few more days, they'll be more sour.
You leave it on your table.
Yeah, so
How long does that take versus you put it in the fridge?
once you put it in the fridge, it slows down the fermenting process. It will still ferment, but it'll slow it down because the cold, so if you leave it on your counter, it takes like 3 to 4 days. And then you can open it up and try it. And if you like how it is, you can put it in your fridge so it stays longer. If you want it to be a little bit more sour, then just leave it a little bit longer. It's perfect weather now in Arizona. Like when it gets too hot, it can spoil on the counter depending on what your AC is on. And we don't have basements here, so. Okay, so everybody should have the garlic, dill, the coriander, peppercorn, and bay leaves, and kosher salt. Now we're going to be putting the dill on top, so you can watch how I do it. We're going to place it on top. Just do a couple sprigs of dill. It gives it a really nice flavor, that dill flavor. And then you're ready for the water. When you make pickles, it's best to do it in a jar, but we can't do that here. We don't want any of them to break, so we're using plastic containers. But if you do this again at home, it would be best in a mason jar. Yeah, they sell big mason jars for this. Yes. If you what? Will it work? Yes. If you peel the cucumbers, it will still work. I think it takes a little bit longer, but it does work. Yeah, when you finish these pickles at home and you want to add more cucumbers, you can reuse the liquid for a couple weeks. Okay, so everybody should have the garlic, the dill, the coriander, the peppercorn, the bay leaves, the salt, and we're going to be going around and putting water on top of covering the cucumbers with water. So there should be volunteers going around and helping everybody filling their containers up with water. While you wait for the volunteers to help you with the water, on the other side of your recipe card, there's a little quiz that we can do together just for fun to see who was listening to the kosher presentation. So the first question, the word kosher means, what does the word kosher mean? Fit for use. Good. People think kosher means blessed. It does not mean blessed. It means fit for use. Question B, When does a kosher food mixed with another kosher food become unkosher? Good, you're a kosher expert. Meat and milk, meat and dairy. C, for a fish to be kosher, what does it have to have? Fins and scales, good. For an animal to be kosher, it must chew its cud and have split hooves. So it has to have both, chew its cud and have split hooves. For meat to be kosher, it must be slaughtered and salted. To be kept soaked and salted, yes. How long do we wait after eating meat before we eat dairy? 6 hours, good. And the last one, we didn't talk about this, so it's a bonus question. What does glot kosher mean? Glot means smooth. Smooth. It means that the lungs of the animal were checked to make sure that they're smooth and there's no nicks on them or any health condition, and that is called glot kosher. So you can have regular kosher or glot kosher. Glot kosher is just a little bit more of a stringency, and it just means that somebody actually checked the lungs of the animal. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so raise your hand if you're still waiting for water. Everybody got water? So you make sure that you cover your container and you're gonna give it a little burp. I call it a burp. So you cover your container, then open it up a little bit, let out the air, so you don't want air in there, and then close it again. You just do that when you're closing it. And if you take this home and you transfer this to a jar or you cut off the ends and you put it back in, you would want to do that again. You want to try to make sure there's the least air as possible. Yeah, just once. And then you can take your container, just shake it gently to get the salt to kind of move around. I don't have any water in here, but no, it's good. And then there you go, you have your pickles. So everybody give yourselves a round of applause for making pickles. And now you can take this home and leave it on your counter. They should be ready in about 3 days. After that, you can put it in the fridge and enjoy them. If you want them to be a little bit more sour, you can wait 4 days or 5 days. My kids they can't wait. So after 3 days, we're eating the pickles. Yes, you had a question?
So I did this last year, and my daughter, I checked it, and delicious. So then I took them out.
Mhm. So somebody here is saying that she did this last year. I'm going to tell everybody. So they 3 times. Yeah. So she said that she made these pickles last year here. She put them in her pantry because it was a little bit darker. And after 3 days, they were perfect and they were really crispy. And then she reused the liquid and put more cucumbers in, and she did that 3 times. After 3 times, the water started getting a little, so I usually use it twice because the liquid does sometimes start really getting sour. And these are very, very healthy. They're really good for your gut. They're really good for stomachs, any stomach issues, because they're natural. It's a natural acidophilus. Yeah. About a week, 6 days, they'll be sour. Yeah. And yes. Yeah, you can put radishes, onions, tomatoes. Usually when you do the onions, you put vinegar in it, but you can use any other vegetables. Beets and also cabbage. Cabbage. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Slice them. Anybody have any other questions? Yeah. You can use tap water, yeah. People like to use spring water, but I've used tap water and it's totally fine. When you use vinegar, a lot of people cook the vinegar and it becomes a lot more like, there's a lot more details that go into it. So for here, that's why we just use this recipe without vinegar. Yeah. If you give me your email, I can email you a recipe that I use with vinegar. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Yes.